Hey couples, it's Brian and Tracy, and in today's video, we're gonna help you parents out there who have teens or preteens who also have phones.
Check out some of these stats. 53% of kids have a phone by the age of 11. Teens spend 7 hours a day on the phone. Porn sites are viewed by teens more than Amazon, Netflix, and Twitter combined. 26% of teens actively seek out porn.
So let's talk today about keeping your teens safe on their phones. We're going to give you 3 really practical tips. In fact, you should talk about this not just with your spouse, but you should also talk about this maybe with your teen or with your preteen. Tip number 1, start engaging with your kids now. If you don't influence them, parents, someone else certainly will.
You need to start having conversations with your kids now, especially if your kids are 9 or 10 and they're already asking for a phone. If the age that most kids are getting a phone now is 11, then you need to start talking now. What's the point of having a phone? What are the dangers of having a phone? What are ways to use a phone in a smart way? What are some of the dangers? Start engaging with your kids and talking about it. You know, one of the platforms that I know a lot of parents have concerns about is Snapchat. How does it work? All I hear about are these pictures you can take and then they disappear. Talk to your kids about when is the right time for them to have Snapchat? Why would they want Snapchat? What would be the dangers of sending something to someone and they could screenshot it? You might think it goes away, but it doesn't really go away. Just start having those conversations. What are the dangers of searching on sites that are not appropriate? If our kids are accessing porn sites more than they are Amazon, Netflix, and Twitter combined, then that says to me there's a lot of kids out there that are searching things aimlessly. Maybe they found something on accident and it just takes them down a rabbit trail that they are not supposed to be going down. So parents, start engaging with your kids. Talk to them about how to use phones. When is the right time for them to get a phone? And be wise about this because there's a ton of danger out there.
So that's tip number 1, start engaging with your kids now, parents. Tip number 2 is to establish clear boundaries and communicate them with your kids, with your teens, with your preteens.
This can all be part of that, going along with the first tip of engaging with your kids. Talk to them about why we need to have boundaries. How are we going to use the phone? We're going to give you some examples here in a minute, but just to understand that your kids need to have limits. They need to have boundaries on them, or else we're just asking for trouble. If it's just a free-for-all that we just give them this device that has access to anything that they want in the whole world and then not give them any clear directives, we're just asking for trouble.
So we'll help you get that list started. Here are 4 boundaries that we recommend that you set with your teens right away. Number 1, no phones in the bedroom at night.
This is just a smart boundary, especially when we're talking about the pornography issue, but even just thinking about things that your kids might be doing on Instagram or Snapchat, right? When they have lots of hours alone in their room at night, when you've gone to bed and they know there's not a lot of supervision or accountability, it just creates an environment for bad things to happen. So we really feel like it's a good precedent to set that phones are not in your kids' bedrooms at night, that you find a safe place in the home where everyone maybe charges their phones, but you do not let your kids have endless access with no accountability with their phones in their room at night. That's just breeds trouble and access to things that you do not want your kids to be viewing.
Boundary number 2, parents are shared on all platforms, whether the kid wants them to be shared or not.
Again, this is just part of the process of our kids earning your trust, that they would know that you could see anything that they post, any picture that they put out there, any comment that they make, that they know that mom or dad can see that. I think that's an important thing for them to think before they post. It's a good way for them to develop, wait, let's think before I say or do something. But parents, this is part of your responsibility, I feel, for oversight for your kids, that especially if they're 11 or 12, for you to give them no supervision, for you not to know anything that they're doing online, I just think is a dangerous precedent. I mean, think what we do for our kids when they get ready to drive a car, how many hours they have to spend practicing with you in the car that you get to observe and watch and help and guide them. We need to view that in their online use of their phone, because there's a ton of stuff happening in the cyber world, right? And you as parents need to be a part of that. So being shared on their platforms is a trust building exercise. It's not about control, it's about protection, but also the real-time training of, hey, I noticed a post that you made or that picture. What was that about, right? Just to give some accountability there.
Now, the third boundary should be obvious to all of us as parents. You should block inappropriate content, but it might not be obvious to your teen or your preteen what exactly is appropriate and what isn't.
Yeah, and I think parents, I think it's very appropriate too for you to be honest with your kids that you are monitoring that you are putting things in place because you want to protect them. You know, the stats I gave in the beginning of the video come from Bark, which is an online platform that helps to protect kids from social media and online dangers. So there's lots of options out there. Make sure that you're incorporating those things and making sure that what your kids are doing on their phones, that you can block things that are not safe.
And then our fourth and final boundary is to, of course, limit phone use. Make sure that your kids are aware that they just shouldn't be on the phone all day long.
And really, parents, I think that starts with us, what we're modeling, how often we're on the phone. You know, there's a time for phone use and there's a time where we need to put those devices down. Because again, if you think that kids are on their phones 7 hours a day, there's a lot of bad things that can happen in 7 hours out of sheer boredom. So let's just limit the phone use. And again, as you engage with your kids and you talk to them about that, explain why there's going to be limits to the phone use, that everyone in the family follows those rules, but we're just protecting our kids from just having endless hours to just find trouble or trouble to find them.
So those are our 4 suggested boundaries. Now, of course, you can add some of your own boundaries as you think about your kids, your preteens, and your teens. But here's the third and final tip for this video. Parents, don't freak out. Make sure to be a safe person for your kids to approach when they have struggles. And they certainly are going to have struggles and they're going to need someone to approach, but they want to make sure that you're safe.
Yeah, so you remember when I said that it's a trust building exercise when our kids share and know that we're on their platforms? But it's a trust building exercise for us as parents that our kids can trust that we don't freak out, that when we do see something that's concerning, rather than just yelling and screaming and going off the handle, that we really could approach our kids and say, hey, I want to be a safe person. Let's talk about that picture you posted. Let's talk about that post or that, message that came in from so-and-so. How did that make you feel? What would be the right way to respond to that? To really be a coach for your kids in those moments, because they're going to need someone to process through this with. If they've looked at some things that they know, they went on some sites that were inappropriate and they shouldn't have seen some of the things that they saw, be a safe person for your kids to process through and then help them find different boundaries of how to protect themselves from doing that again. But parents, we have a responsibility to train up our kids and to protect them, and giving them a phone and then having no guidance whatsoever, I just think is really dangerous. Let's be smart about it, use these tips, and let's make sure that the way your teens and preteens are using their phones is for their protection and their good.
So those are our tips for how to keep your teens safe when they're using their phones. Now, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on our YouTube channel. Make sure to like this so that more parents can see and use this helpful video in their own families. And of course, find discussion questions and more for this conversation at flextalk.org/family.